going to make a business WhatsApp. But then I didn't realize that if you use your number for a business WhatsApp, you can't use it for your normal WhatsApp.
Yeah, you need a separate
So then
number.
it deleted my WhatsApp. I had to re-download it.
You didn't read it before you signed up?
No, I was just like, next. And
I was about to do it, then I read it and I said, I need another number.
I didn't know. But you know what? At one point, I wasn't even going to use mine. I was going to put yours in. Could you imagine? Okay. I can't imagine. Saw your face. Scared. I'm not going to... Glad I didn't do that. But yeah, I deleted all my chats. So annoying.
No, that would have been crazy. Okay, cool.
I love that's how you say I'm ready. Welcome to episode number 22. I haven't done a warm welcome in a minute, you know. I didn't even realize that.
Yes. We're
Did
in the building.
it bring back fun memories?
It has.
Season 1.
Brings back memories of...
Or trauma of
we
season.
started. The growth. The things that we need to leave behind.
The things you heard it here first, the shade.
No, I'm messing around. But yeah, welcome to another episode of the Alphawaves podcast.
Welcome.
With your hosts, Cam and Darren.
Yes, indeed.
Once again, follow us on YouTube. We're on YouTube videos bi-weekly.
Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, TikTok, Instagram.
Just type in Alphawaves podcast and you'll see us on everything.
Yes, you will.
But yes, here for another episode.
Another app.
You look bright and happy today. I'm being so sincere, but I get laughed at, so I don't. This is why I don't.
It's just because, for context, guys, I had to force a compliment out of you earlier on.
I was saving it, innit?
And now you want to do a surprise attack.
I was saving it.
But thank you very much. Yes, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling more alive.
That's great to know.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No complaints on my side. Yeah.
Why are we so...
I have no idea why you're doing this to me.
We just need to get into it. So, Darren, tell us about the wonderful topic that we're talking about today.
Today's topic is about hierarchy in society, in families, personal lives, work, everything and anything.
Hierarchies.
No, I'm playing. So, yeah, we wanted to touch on hierarchies because I feel like there's been a sense of loss when it comes to hierarchies these days. Like, I think there was things put in place before that you could structurally see who was running this or who was next in line, or you know what I mean, just like a certain order to things, and I feel like it's disappeared a lot in a lot of walks in life. And I don't know if that's down to all the information that's out there now, that people don't really need to respect what comes before them anymore. Whereas like, for instance, there's some stories that you would have to go to an older person to understand or to even know about. Whereas now, it's like, it doesn't even have to take that normal route anymore. It could just be a case of like, before you would maybe speak to an elder and they'll tell you all about the history or something. Whereas now, most of that information is just readily available to you online or...
That's such an interesting thing. But before we get into that in more detail, I want to know what makes you feel that the hierarchy has changed. Like, how was it before and how is it now?
I think there's just like so much unruliness in the world that it's just, it made me think about it, because I feel like respect's gone. So, but where does respect come from? It comes from like boundaries almost, but those boundaries are normally like imagine respect your elders. That's something that was always in place from whenever I could remember. I don't really hear that anymore.
Same, but I don't really mind that. I feel
it is. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but
Because even with hierarchy, like what you said a second ago, that, you know, the order of things, that you know who's coming up next after the person who is in charge or whatever. Do you feel like that is a system that works, you know? Like, say, for example, in a family business, is the eldest child really the best equipped child? You know what I mean? Like,
Not
maybe
always.
the youngest is better suited to
That's
this.
what I'm saying. I feel like that's what when I say is I don't mean it in a bad way necessarily. There's some aspects of it I think which is a bad thing that is kind of disappeared, but there's others that's good because it's given opportunity to other people to shine. Like, and we're seeing some people, if you look at the hierarchy chain, people that's higher up that are just messing up in 4K in front of us. So why am I gonna wait for you to have your turn? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Look at the royal family, for instance. Hope we don't. Yeah, look at the royal family, for instance.
And I'm like, my friends, what do you mean?
Like,
no, it's true.
you can see people that you're like, you're next in line or whatever, but you what? Like,
And even actually, that's such a good point to bring up, because even that, like, you can see that there may be a feeling that the next in line may not be equipped to deal with what's going on. So then their moment to be that person is delayed and delayed and delayed. But then the next person who may be better to do it, their moment is also getting delayed, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hierarchy is an interesting thing, because I feel like hierarchies exist, but not everyone in the hierarchy is equipped to be a leader, you know, or people in the hierarchy who are at the top can sometimes be too happy that they're the leader, and it becomes an ego thing rather than a what's best for everyone thing.
True. I mean, saying that, I guess that can be prevented by certain people being able to skip steps and progress higher in the chain. But at the same time, it's easy to get ahead of yourself. Like, you might think that you can do something. You should think that you can do anything. But you should also know the importance of, like, biding your time or
even taking your time.
And understanding what you're getting yourself into fully.
Yeah.
Where I feel like a lot of people are jumping before their time, and they might swim for a bit, but it's not. The order of things was in that way for a reason a lot of times. Whereas there's other instances where it's time to disrupt the order.
Can you give an example of two different things where the order is that way for a reason, and another instance where it's good to disrupt it?
So, for instance, two polar opposite examples: workplace hierarchy and street hierarchy. Two polar opposites. Yeah?
Totally different.
Workplace, I feel that hierarchy needs to be disrupted.
Yes,
because
I'm so glad you said that.
There's old people. There's old people. I'm not mincing my words today. There's old people that's got in this super comfort zone, trying to still do things and implement things the old school way,
in a way that serves them and what they're doing.
Like, like if you're in a position and you're comfortable, cool, but adapt with the times. Like, you ever seen? I've heard some horror stories, but have you ever seen like a man or a woman host like a training session, and it's the most outdated thing ever, and then that person now is expected to work in the current market with old school training? It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it is a recipe for disaster. And even management as a whole, like, I'm starting to question whether managers are even needed, you know?
A lot of them aren't. Some are.
I feel
A lot aren't.
like the hierarchy at the moment, like having a team leader, then a manager, then another manager on top of them, and then a senior manager and a group head and a CEO. I feel like all that's coming from that is more people who get to say no.
Which is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, because it's just like, we're not okay with that. And then just like a trickling of pressure from the top to the bottom. I feel like that's what it is, that everyone has someone to answer to, and then every employee wants to be a manager so that they don't have to answer to someone, but you do. And I feel like in that kind of a space, where work really is a place, if you really want to look at it, to obviously make money, but to learn, you need a guide more than anything.
Definitely. But that's why I say, you see, work like
And
that.
not all managers are suited to leadership, I
That's
feel.
that's true. But it's because also, like, this is why I say work, that hierarchy needs to be disrupted, is because there's people like in these positions that's been there for a long time and they don't know better, which is cool. But then you've got younger people, it doesn't even necessarily have to be younger, just different mindset, where they want you to follow this, oh yeah, do this for 18 months and then you can move here, and then after 18 months you can progress, and then after that you can do this. But people's time span doesn't need to be that anymore, because number one, a lot of people are doing something outside of work now anyway. So it's like, I'm not gonna wait 18 months just for a progress here, when if I do 6 months of this and bring it somewhere else, I'm gonna already elevate.
Yeah.
So that whole, you're not next in line, this person is next in line, that needs to get rid of, first of all. Second of all, if these people do get into these positions, they're of the mindset of the current generation. So they understand that, all right, you come to work, but you might have something else going on outside of work. So I'm not going to restrict that. Like, I'm going to let that flourish just as much as you do here.
Yeah.
Like, there's some managers that you go to them and say that you need time off and they think that you're asking them.
Yeah.
Like,
or you say it and you feel like you have to ask,
That's
know what
crazy.
I mean? Like, it is crazy. Like, it's my time. But honestly, I've never had time off or requested it where it's felt like like it really has felt like a request that someone could say no.
Because to me, obviously, I get it, needs of the business and that, yeah. But if you're doing it with enough notice, nobody should ever be able to tell you no. And like, if it's a short notice thing and it's an emergency, nobody should be able to tell you no. But if it's just like, you just thought about it, yeah, I want tomorrow off, that's crazy, isn't it? For no reason. It shouldn't be crazy technically, because it's your life.
That's the world I want to live in,
But you got to understand, to live that world, you're going to have everything on your own terms, right? Like, you are. So yeah, I just feel that
you got to give and take.
That needs to be shaken up a lot, that hierarchy structure, because you can just look at a man or a woman in a position and be like, you're not moving like anytime soon.
But even that aside, like, even in other aspects, you really see people in a different way with a hierarchy in work. Like, you forget that this person in front of you is just a human, but because they're your manager, and it's not even like a pedestal thing, it's, like, you can, like, I've definitely seen behavior change in people when they're put in front of a manager or a CEO or something like this. And I think there needs to be a balance between respecting that you're in front of someone who's earned, the position that they've earned. It's not easy to be in those positions, but also that, they are just a manager. Like, they're not a special person.
I used to hate, like, being in a place and they'll be like, oh yeah, the area, whoever's coming, and everybody would change the way they are. I was just didn't understand it. Like, just be your natural self.
But I don't know, I feel like in that place where there's such a hierarchical thing or structure, it's like, sometimes it's not easy to be yourself, because everything in your career depends on how much you really get along with this person. Like, your career is in that person's hands. It's really not about how good of a job you're doing. It's fully like, do they like you? Because if they like you, they'll trust you. And if you seem like someone who's going to do things their own way and not their way, then you really won't be considered, I feel.
Yeah, that's what's crazy about it. That's why I feel it needs a shake up. Because there will be people that they earmark for certain roles just because, based on what their way of working or whatever, and they're not really adapted to the new way. And you could be someone with a new way of working, get the job done, etc., but you won't be next in line. You might be the one after or something, where by that time it's too late. But with this new generation, I think everybody is, not everybody obviously, but a lot of people are clued on to how the world works now, especially with the internet. Like, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of things that you can see.
The younger generation in work is so wild to me. Like, I see these things online with people just quitting jobs and not doing certain things and answering back to managers. And I love to see it. I can't
100%.
lie. I love to see it. I'm just like, of course, they can't request this possession over your life.
It's ridiculous.
They're not giving you money out of their pocket.
This is the
No.
thing. It's
I'm just trying to live. So I love how the world of work is changing. I don't like how slowly it's changing.
I think it's on an industry basis though, depending on which industry.
That's true. Yeah.
There's some that are just stuck in their ways, but hey, I'm not here to change everything in the world.
Exactly. Can't change it all. So talk to me about
The polar opposite,
right.
streets. Without going too deep here, there's always been an understanding. Let me put it like that. There's always been an understanding of, there should be anyway, in a successful operation, there should be an understanding of the position that you hold within that operation, yeah? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't elevate or you can't do certain things, but in that period of time, you got to understand the position that you're in. Nowadays, people don't respect, and a lot of people bring it on themselves. Let me start there. A lot of older people do bring it on themselves, and they get stuck in their ways. Just like in the workplace, they get stuck in their ways and not want to hear what the younger generation or the ones coming up after them have to say. It's all me, and what I used to do. Forget that. Those people deserve everything that comes their way, yeah? The other people now that have experienced something.
So what's different with the other people from those people in them?
Because those people want to still be the head, but on the field, which makes no sense. Like, imagine sports, for instance. You want to be the manager plus the captain on the field. It makes no sense.
See, now when you said sports, I already knew that this
It was going to go over your head.
Yeah.
Cool. Like,
because I'm thinking, what's the difference between? Oh, you mean the football captain?
yes, or any sports, like
But what?
the team leader and the manager, basically. Like,
Okay.
you've got to put trust that you've given enough information to the one coming after you for them to carry on a certain way. If they're stepping out of line, there shouldn't be. It's not a discipline thing. It's just like a
guidance
thing. Yeah? Whereas nowadays, I've noticed that a lot of the younger generation don't care for what anybody older than them's got to say because they think they know it all, or they're listening to someone slightly older than them, but not the person that's actually graduated from this lifestyle. Like, they'll listen to the captain, but they won't listen to the manager. And sometimes that manager you need that manager because they've seen and they've been through this before. Like, it's almost like you're walking into foreign land and you've got your soldier with you, your head soldier, but you ain't got the lieutenant or whatever they're called, the ones above that. Like, you do need a little bit of hierarchy. So, because sometimes, yeah, for instance, take it off the streets. This could be parent level, yeah? Your child goes to a school. He's got an older brother and he's got you, right? As the parent. Your youngest child goes to this school. Say there's like a 5 to 7 year age gap between him and his brother. Your child goes to this school, gets into problems with one boy. He goes to his older brother. His brother is like just as angry as him. Wants to support in his thing because the other child doesn't have a brother. But if he goes to his dad, you speak to his dad and his dad might be like, oh, that's so-and-so's son. Like, the dad might know the dad. Whereas your older brother doesn't know anyone from that side. So now you've created a crazy situation, whereas if you just listen to
If you went to the actual
actual head of the family, this situation wouldn't have escalated to the point where it has.
For sure. But I think it also depends in how you lead as well, because
That's what I started off with.
exactly. Because the thing is, like, I feel that and I've seen it having like younger siblings and knowing younger people as well. When you are young and you're experiencing things, you think that you are the first one to experience this
100%.
first thing in this only way. And I think that's why it's important that if there is a hierarchy, it's not like blindly trust the person.
No, 100%.
You have to tell people like, yeah, I had this experience. This is what I did that in that experience, and I learned things. So that's the guidance that I'm giving you. And I think where things go wrong in hierarchies is a sense of withholding information and control.
Yeah.
Because with the people in your team, whether your team is like a work team or a friend group or a family, you have to still trust that individual to make a choice.
Yeah.
Based on your guidance, whether they want to take it or not. Like, same example, I could tell as a parent that child to do this, and trust that either they'll do it or they don't do it, and to deal with the consequence of that.
Yeah.
Because then I think that's how you figure out where the people after you are at, how ready they are to be at the next step, if they'll ever be ready for that.
Yeah, it's true. But I think family is an interesting one.
Yeah,
because
family is an interesting one for sure. So are you a middle sibling?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys, man, are so annoying. I can't even. Middle siblings, I will tell you why. Every middle sibling I know thinks they're the oldest sibling because here we go, Exhibit A.
I don't, but I'm trying to hear.
Because they've had the good fortune of not being the guinea pig, so they've had more chance to observe. But that doesn't mean that you now know more, or you know what I mean? Like, you still have to trust that someone else has been through it before you, and respect that.
So you feel like in a family there needs to be a sense of hierarchy based on what you're saying?
I feel like in a family there is naturally a sense of hierarchy.
What if your parent skips you and goes to your younger sibling for something, like something of importance, say like finances? What if they skip you and go to them? How would that make you feel?
Really good, because don't come to me about finances.
All right, something that I'm trying to.
That's the thing, because with me being like the older sibling in my family, I think one thing that I've always done is I've not tried to like force myself to lead anything.
Okay.
I think a good leader knows how to be in the back seat because you're not good at everything.
All right, say something that what is something that you're good at? That family wise, I mean, like that you bring to the family.
What is something I'm good at family wise? Okay, well, you put me on the spot. Maybe the emotional well-being.
Okay, cool. So say your parents are going through something now, yeah? And she how can I put this? Emotional well-being is a crazy one.
Well,
right, can you spot when somebody's going through something?
Yeah, you can. Like, when you know your family well,
right, cool.
You can tell.
So you see your mum going through something. She hasn't said anything to you, yeah? You can see that something's up. And she hasn't spoken to you, yeah? Cool. And you've been trying to have the conversation, but she's not talking to you. Then one day you're out on a drive with your brother. Then he says, "Oh, mum, this whatever." And you're like, "What?" She spoke to you about it. How would that make you feel as the oldest?
That wouldn't really be my reaction if it's like, oh, she spoke to you about it. I feel like with stuff like that, and that's the thing with being like the oldest, you kind of have to be okay with those kinds of things. Because with me, I just have the bigger goal in mind, which is, are they okay?
Okay.
And if someone else has dealt with it, it's a relief almost, because it's like, okay, cool, they're fine. Is there anything I need to do?
You're not the best example, right?
Because I'm an excellent leader.
I'm probably trying to play devil's advocate, and it's just not working.
I feel like it can be tough. Like, I'm not going to lie. Of course, there's sibling rivalry sometimes, or, if we're trying to make a decision on how to do something, and there's clashes of who thinks what would be better and stuff like that. But I think what makes us like a good team, like with my mum and my brothers, is that we all kind of come with our strengths and come with our gaps. Like we know what the other person is
Yeah.
good at, what they're not good at, you know, what's going to trigger someone too much, what isn't. And I think that is what kind of makes a hierarchy work. Because if you're in a hierarchy where one person is kind of responsible for something and they're not very good at it, but then they're not also accepting other ways to do things. If it's like an ego thing, like say a husband in the family and he's like, I'm the man of the house, it's got to be my way, we've got to do it like this. That's just not going to work. And then hierarchies naturally will break down, you know? And when that happens, the order of how things should be to flow nicely does kind of break down because no one's leading anything and everyone's now doing their own thing.
That's that's where I was gonna go next, you know, like the man of the house thing, because like I think like that's the staple in family dynamics, and hierarchy, that there's always this belief of obviously the dad should be the man of the house, right? When that is absent, right, and the man of the house, by default, it should be the next oldest boy, right?
But yeah,
by default, it's meant to be, right?
Yeah.
In those situations, when the younger is doing something more than that older person, I've seen it happen before, where that can cause a lot of like resentment between brothers or whatever. Like, in those situations, I can kind of understand why the hierarchy might be needed.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like...
But then at the same time, like that same example, like if someone else is stepping up, and that's why the hierarchy isn't necessarily an age thing. Like the middle sibling thing is jokes, but it is just a joke because the thing is, like, if someone else is stepping up, you have to respect that no one asked them to step up, you know, and you are now annoyed at someone doing something that you couldn't do. And if you want to be that person, then you need to step up and be that person.
No, of course. Of course. That's what I think it comes down to as well. Like,
but it's sad though.
Whoever's the, I don't like to say head of the table, but let's say that, should be able to recognize certain traits in whoever and implement it with that person, and like, it shouldn't have to be, okay, so you're the oldest, so I'm going to come to you with this. If your younger brother or sister is doing certain things, then there shouldn't be a problem. Like, if I can recognize that they've got this ability, then that's where the hierarchy should kind of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like with me and my brother who's older of the two, like with me and him, it doesn't really feel like, even though I'm older, it doesn't really feel like there's someone in charge or something like that, because we both have strengths and respect each other's strengths with stuff, you know, like we know that this is what that person is good at. Let them do that, or ask them for that help and give them that place. It's not like, oh, you're doing something that I should be doing, you know, because if that was the case, then you do it. But also at the same time, it is hard being an older sibling sometimes, and then you see your younger sibling stepping up in certain ways that you want to be. And I'm not going to lie, that's obviously not great sometimes. But again, if you truly are that person, then regardless of your immediate reaction, you would take that and use it as a way to elevate, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like the only way that can work is that there has to be a point of this hierarchy. So your parent or your grandparent still has to be overseeing it. Because I've seen it as well. I'm sure you've seen it. Like these kids that run their household, like their parents can't tell them nothing. That's when it's unruly. Like, and I'm seeing a lot of that in this generation, especially people that don't respect their own parents, don't respect elders, don't respect grandparents, don't respect the random old woman that's crossing the road. Like, I see it all the time, and it's like, the hierarchy doesn't necessarily have to be discipline. It's a respect level.
It is a respect level, but I find statements like that so funny because I used to agree like with stuff like that, but then I always think like the kid that you're looking at didn't learn this on their own.
No, of course.
Know? Like the way that they are is what they were taught. So how, like, they are literally following the leader, you know, in that hierarchy. Everyone in the hierarchy after you, like in a family, from the parents, not the siblings, but every child that follows is literally a reflection of what you've taught them. So they're talking like the same way that they heard you talk when they were 5 years old, and now you don't like it because they're talking to you like that.
No, it's true. When you look at it, there's always a deeper...
Where did they learn it?
Deeper level. It's all learnt behaviour.
Yeah. And also, some parents aren't great parents. Like, they just aren't. Like, you know, you've got someone who's supposed to be leading and guiding you through life. And then as you're getting older, you're realizing they are a mess, you know? Like, then what do you kind of do in that situation?
That's a fact. Some people aren't fit to be parents, and that's just the cold, harsh reality of life.
It is a harsh reality.
But it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's learnt behavior.
I think it's easy to like look at young people and blame them for being the way that they are, especially when it disrupts so much of how you were brought up and what you believe is to be true and how you would like young people to be moving through the world, because obviously they are the next generation, and I think there is so much to learn from them. But I don't know, I just feel like you've got to look at the parents.
You do.
And not even necessarily the parents. Like, not everyone lives in a household with just parents. Some people live in a household with many older people to learn from. And those situations aren't easy either. But every person is just a reflection of what they learn until they decide to learn something different. And not everyone realizes that they have that choice to even be different.
But you say that, yeah, but if somebody is acting out of turn, or they're just doing something that you just think is just like, just not great, basically, yeah, who is it that you look towards? You look towards who came before them, right? Like, who's above them. 9 times out of 10, that's who you look at. You're like, what did your parents do? How did it? So that hierarchy exists because people always look at what's above you. But if you're living in a situation where you yourself don't look at what's above you, then you're not going to really care. You're just going to do whatever you want to do, realistically.
What do you mean?
Like, say for instance, there's someone, I don't know, you can look at criminals, you can look at even work related, somebody that just always acting up, just doing
that
something. That
person who's always in your business trying to ask about, you know, your time off or what you're doing and just this, that and the other. And
anything.
And it's like, are you even a manager? Like, who hired you secretly? Because
sometimes you can just look at someone, yeah, and they're just off the rails, let's say, with how they're behaving. It's out of the norm, yeah.
Wait. So this person's behavior in general is out of the general norm, or out of character for them?
Out of the general norm. And like you said, it's normally a reflection on how they've been raised or whatever. And that's what most people look at. Like, if there's a kid that's always getting in trouble in school, the first thing they're going to do is look at the parents. If there's somebody that's always just acting up at work, they're gonna get onto them first. But then after that, you're gonna think like, what's the deal with this person? There's someone that's always in and out of jail. You're gonna look at their household. But we're saying now that the household doesn't necessarily have to have this hierarchy where you look at the person before them. It could just be them based on what they've seen, right? But say, for instance, that you went to this household and you looked at how their parents have structured their own life, and then the way this person is acting is completely against that. In my eyes, I would look at that as that's somebody that doesn't respect the hierarchy within their house. But it could be the polar opposite, like you said, where there is no hierarchy in the house and everything is just up in the air. And I think 9 times out of 10, the person that doesn't respect the hierarchy in their house, it's more of a issue with themselves than the hierarchy, if that makes sense.
Like if they have something going on that doesn't fit the norm of their household.
I feel like you find more unruly people without a hierarchy in their house, or where they've grown up, because I don't know, like
I don't know if that's true. I feel like a hierarchy naturally exists in the house, even if no one tries to implement it, because someone's telling someone what to do. Like someone's got to listen to someone. That just exists. So a hierarchy is naturally born. I think what causes the shift between someone respecting the hierarchy in their household or not comes from one, an element of what you said, like whether they fit into their household, but two, whether the hierarchy is respectable, like if it's something to be respected, you know, like say if you come from a household where the head of the household supposedly is quite a immature, volatile, abusive person, you're not going to respect the hierarchy. Like you are going to be unruly and away from it and try to change things or reject it altogether.
It's tricky, man, because I've seen so many different examples of both in my life, and it's just like I don't know, like I'm not, on a whole, I'm not a fan of hierarchy, but I feel like in certain dynamics there needs to be a head. That's all. I don't think there needs to be a structure after the head of the hierarchy, or however you want to play it, but I feel like there needs to be a focal point, because
there needs to be a guide.
There has to be, in my opinion. It can't just be everybody's just doing what they want without understanding what came before them. And so imagine like
how you got here.
Yeah, imagine like there's this beat like within a family or even a village or whatever, yeah, that there's this one person that you go to for certain things, and then one day somebody's just like, I'm not going to them anymore, I'm just doing my own thing, and that just that causes change, and then now everybody's thinking the same way. That's causing so much disruption that it's just gonna cause a divide eventually. Whereas if that same person had the mentality of, I don't want to go to them anymore, I want to become that person that everybody comes to. Like I want to be like.
But how would they become that person if?
That's the next in line thought process. Like you're making yourself next in line rather than just going against everything. And I think that's the crucial thing in hierarchies. You've got people that I feel like you should be able to disrupt the hierarchy, as in skip the queue to become the next in line. But to totally get rid of a hierarchy, I think that's where the problem is.
But what if like you want to be the next in line for something, but not for that or that way they're doing things or that consensus, you know? What happens in that situation?
It's difficult to say. That's very difficult to say, because you're going to cause.
Because that's the thing.
Disruption.
I feel like there's a way to do certain things, and that's what determines whether what you've done is, in quotation marks, good or bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like that same example, like say if there's a village and there's one person that you go to all the time, I feel like life works in shifts and cycles, and they change. And what's good for you, or who's good for you to go to advice to in your 20s, may change in your 30s, depending on the direction that you want to go in.
Very true.
So I think it's okay for sometimes people to question the hierarchy, or to stop going to someone and start thinking their own way. Because ultimately, that's the goal of a hierarchy, to build up whoever's behind you as someone who's capable to move forward independently.
Correct, yeah.
So I feel like that could be a good thing.
That's what I said. There's going to be good points to going against it.
Yeah.
But ultimately.
And I think as well, like that too, like the idea of someone going against the hierarchy and that causing disruption against kind of like everyone else. I think that definitely exists as a threat in workplaces. And that's why there is such a rigid hierarchy and this sense of control, because it is control.
That's what it is at the end of the day.
Mm.
I don't feel like that's the part that I don't like, is the control side. Like, let people make their own mistakes, etc. Let people progress as fast as they're capable of progressing. But it's the control element that of hierarchies which I despise so much. Like,
can you be specific, like with the control part as well, like examples?
Like, I just ordering your life, basically, telling you when it's your time to do something. Like, that control element makes me sick, to be honest. Like, you're telling me when I can do something. That's crazy. That's different from giving me pointers on when the best time to do something is. That's totally different. But telling me when I can and cannot do something, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. That's the control element that I hate. It makes me sick.
I agree. Okay, come back to us, Darren. You started like for real looking off to the to the distance. But yeah, no, I agree with that. Like the control, I feel like control is just not really necessary. But then I also do believe that certain things can be misconstrued as control, and some people can be stubborn. Like, for example, you know, you have young kids who are early teens now wanting to go outside, chill with their friends, this, that, and the other. And it's like there's certain rules, you know, like you might not be ready for that level of going out that you want to experience right now, even if your older siblings who are much older are doing that. And I think that's where the hierarchy can create some conflict, you know, because there's certain things that, say, for example, my younger sibling wants to do that they're just really not ready for yet, you know, and you know they're not ready for it because you've done it. And I think that's where it's important to explain those things and say, I'm not just giving you that I told you so, like, you gotta wait your turn kind of thing. And trust and respect the process.
I get it. What do you think is like the biggest thing that can shift a hierarchy?
What kind of hierarchy? Like anyone? I think the biggest thing that can shift a hierarchy, if I'm really thinking about it, can be either issues with the current leader that they're not leading properly, or a better leader who's stepping up. And everyone can see it.
What happens when them two clash?
Well, it depends, you know, like it's hard when you want to be doing something that you can see that someone else is better for. It brings up stuff in you, I imagine. I say I imagine, obviously I know that it brings up stuff in you that is not easy to kind of face, because then you're facing shortcomings, you're facing now an instability. But then it depends on how you handle it, because I feel like if you fight it, you're just going to make things worse. And that's when you have to remember why there's a hierarchy in place. Like, what is the overarching goal? Because if the overarching goal is for you to be in control and be the leader and feel good, then you were never meant for that.
That's very true. That's very true. That's very true. What about, the hierarchy that exists within religion?
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about that. Okay, so the hierarchy in religion. So the place that I want to start with first is the spiritual community, the new age kind of spiritual community. And I have seen like some things on, you know, YouTube and Instagram and stuff. Not really necessarily now. I don't know if it's happening now, but definitely like a few years ago, where people who, you know, were new and not part of a particular culture were calling on like gods and deities from cultures that they're not familiar with.
Right.
And then really bad things would happen to them.
Okay.
Like death even.
Is this facts?
It's a fact. It's on like Instagram that people are going on live and trying to call in these things and this, that, and the other. And that's where I feel like you need to respect the hierarchy and the process. You know, like if you're new to spirituality, if you're new to this religion, and if you're new to a religion that's not even in your culture, I think you need to respect the hierarchy of talking to the person who's part of that culture, even if they're not necessarily religious. So for example, say, okay, me as an example, like my background is Indian. So I'm Hindu and Sikh, but I've never been actively involved in either of those religions.
Okay.
But belonging to the culture means that I grew up to, you know, stories, to things, to parts of it. And it's just stuff that's ingrained in you that you know. It's not stuff that you really necessarily learn. Like it can be taught, but it's not something you learn like that. Like it's stuff that you grow with. It's your culture. And it's interesting to me when people outside of the culture who dive into the topic more deeply than me consider themselves to be more of an expert, you know, if that makes sense. Or it's not even about being, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it while simultaneously keeping my business private, but I'm trying to
Don't blow yourself up.
because the thing is, I feel like if you're entering a new something that isn't part of your thing, you have to respect, as much as you've researched it and known it, you have to respect who it belongs to. Not to say that you will be an outsider, like when you've connected to this religion, it also now belongs to you. But you have to respect that there are things that you might not be aware of, or that you might not know, or that someone else can give you value, that there is a hierarchy there. Like you are entering something that's new for you, even if it now feels a bit more familiar.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that kind of needs to happen.
But within your, I know you said you don't like subscribe exclusively to one or the other. But within those religions, is there like a strong sense of hierarchy?
Yeah, so there'll be like, you know, the main kind of holy person, and you have to respect that person, because the way that I view, you know, religion and spirituality is, if you've made a choice in this day and age, well, not made a choice, if you are here and you're living that kind of life, you have to pass through your own tests, your own things, their own spiritual challenges to be able to reach that point. There's a whole world of experience there that you haven't experienced, that you're not, you just don't know what that's like. So you have to trust that the person that you're talking to is coming to you with their knowledge, and that they've earned that, or their wisdom even, and kind of respect why things are done a certain way.
Yeah.
But also, as I'm speaking, I think, you know, I can't help but think also that religion and spirituality is an individual experience, and you can have your own way of doing it, but you can't. I think the problem arises where you try to overthrow a hierarchy or overthrow something.
How closely linked to tradition do you think it is? Like, is it more a case of just changing traditions more than the actual structure?
I think there's a big difference between tradition and culture and then actual religion. I think they can both become quite enmeshed, but I think there is a difference between the two. And I think religion really just needs to kind of be, or spirituality needs to be respected, because even if you think of it in terms of like learning and stages, like when you start at school, you can't read a big 500-page book in year one. You know, you've got to learn the alphabet and how to put words together, and 3-letter words.
Yeah.
There's stepping stones to do things. And I feel like on a spiritual and religious journey, there's also stepping stones there. Even if your journey looks different to someone else, you have to kind of respect that, in my opinion.
It's interesting.
Because you level up, and then as you grow, your capacity to learn things grows too. So for instance, with my spiritual journey, the first few things I learned, for me at that time were huge. There was no way I could have known about the things or been doing the things that I'm doing now at that stage. You have to get ready for it and earn it.
But isn't that just down to knowledge?
No, I don't think so. I think because the thing with me and spirituality anyway, like as you get to each kind of, for want of a better word, level or stage, it's not just like reading a book and learning about something. It's a whole experience, you know, like
Living through it.
Yeah, like it's a real experience. And like you can't understand another concept without being open to feeling your way through it. And if you have ego involved, if there's truths in your face that you're not ready to face at that time, and that's okay, then you just won't get through to the next bit.
Interesting. That sounds very like tailored and specific.
Yeah, tailored to me, but it ties into another idea I have, which is, you know, and this, I know that many people will disagree with this, because not everyone at every age knows everything. But I think you do have to have some level of respect for people's ages and what that means, because there's a whole many years of earth that you haven't experienced, a whole experience and way of being that you just don't know about. And you have to respect that someone at 30 will know different things and more things than someone at 20. Even if that 20-year-old is more emotionally mature, has been through more things or seen more things, there's certain milestones in life that you will not have experienced at 20 that someone 10 years older than you would have.
That's true. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know, because like, I just feel I'm the wrong person for religion, yeah? But
you brought it up.
I know that's what I asked you. If you asked me, it would have been silence. Because say now, for instance, yeah, this isn't tied to any one religion, but this is just a thought in my head. Say now, for instance, there's a person in this religion that grants blessings to the family, let's say, yeah? And the hierarchy goes, you've got that person, then you've got the head of your household, then you've got the eldest sibling, right? And how it goes, this is all made up, by the way. This is just, but it probably could apply to a certain religion. I don't know. I'm not versed on all religions, or many. Say now, how it's meant to go is that the person that gives the blessing only communicates with the head of the household. After that, it's meant to be the eldest sibling, so on and so forth, yeah? You, as the youngest sibling, feel that you're ready to communicate with this person directly. So you're ready to go over your... Maybe because you've got the mental capacity to deal with it. You've got the responsibility of the household. Like, you're living in this household and you're doing so much for this household that even though by title you're not the head of the house, by actions and behavior, you're almost as close as it can be, yeah? Take away the age and the status and everything. Everything you're doing in that house. You're the breadwinner. You're making sure that your siblings are good. You're making sure your family's looked after. You're that person in that household. But this hierarchy says you can't talk to the person that's meant to be blessing this house. It has to be the head of the household by status, by title, yeah? In those type of situations, when I look at hierarchy, I'm like, I don't get why it has to be this way. Like, it should be the person that best fits for this role. And that highlights my problem with hierarchies in general. Like, everything's so structured where it has to be this person, that person, this person, or this thing has to happen for that thing to happen, for that thing to happen. Whereas if you're somebody, because life's short, like if I within myself feel that I've been blessed to have this mental capacity, to have all of these capabilities, Why do I need to wait around for that person to drop off
Step up.
for me to be able to step up? Like, and I think that's my issue with hierarchies. Like I said from the start, I keep maintaining it. It's not about control, but there should always be a focal point. And where the focal point is missing from so many walks of life right now, I think that's why we're seeing so much go wrong in the world, if I'm honest.
That's so interesting, because my perspective is slightly different, because I feel like everything going wrong in the world right now is because of the hierarchy and how insufficient it is. Because if there was a good hierarchy, people wouldn't feel the need to take it upon themselves. Like if work really was giving you everything that you needed fully, then you wouldn't need like a side hustle that you would eventually want to invest in more. I feel like that autonomy exists because of the structure and how things are. And also with that example with like the family and the blessings from the family going to the older sibling rather than the one who's kind of doing things more, I think those kind of situations where the hierarchy is mixed is kind of unfortunate sometimes, because you know, it's not fair if like that person who was born first really didn't ask for that, you know. It just happened that way. And I think two things can simultaneously exist at once. Like using that same hypothetical family, I think if there were household decisions and stuff like that, it would not be appropriate. It would be necessary for the older sibling to step down and let the younger sibling kind of do what they need to do. But then there is a hierarchy of you were born first. Like you did have to deal with our parents first, and then they got a better version for me, you know? And I think a hierarchy in that situation needs to be respected, because even if you've elevated your own position, you can't ignore a position as well.
I get what you're saying.
Because if the overarching goal, again, it comes down to the overarching goal. If the overarching goal is to exist peacefully and have harmony in your household, then just let them bless your older sibling first. Like, who cares? You know, you're still blessed.
It's true. It's true. But it's interesting though, because you saying that you feel the problem is the hierarchies. It's because these hierarchies are bad hierarchies.
Yeah.
And that's my point. Like, there's a lot of bad hierarchies going on.
Yeah.
Like, people that just want to be in control.
Yeah.
All aspects of life.
Do you feel like right now we live in like almost a leaderless world?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of. There's no world leader, first of all. There is no world leader. There's barely a leader in this country. The person that who this is crazy, yeah, because without getting too political, yeah, you've got a man in charge that's prime minister, and he's had so many people below him just leave. like he is the prime example of when a hierarchy just does not work. Yeah, because you're making these decisions that if somebody else was able to step up, that might have better ideas. Not saying they have to deliver it. They don't have to deliver the information. You can still deliver it. But you can tell that he's a man that wants to be the one making these decisions, delivering the information and living by it. Yeah. And to go back to my first example of the royal family, obviously, if you studied and cared about them enough, you would know that there are people above them, right? But me, like probably a lot of people, I don't really care for them too tough, yeah? But when things started to happen with Harry and Meghan, you saw all the kinks in this hierarchy, down to the fact that they're not even the top of the food chain in their own hierarchy, right? But you could see that a lot of this would be different if there wasn't this structure of who comes next. Like if there was a bit more freedom in that, you could see how things could change. Because the person that's next in line should not be the person that's next in line. The capabilities, the everything. Obviously, I don't know the ins and out of them as a person, but they should not be the next in line. The people that should be the next in line are basically being extradited from the family. Pretty much. So like things like that just show me that this world, the hierarchy is a mess. Like,
do you think with the way that the world is now, hierarchy is important or needed?
I feel like this is why it's conflicting, because I feel like it needed to happen where there's big disruption, and we might have to overthrow the hierarchy in totality if nobody knows how to do it right. And I feel like right now nobody knows how to do it right, so we don't need it. But ultimately, I think there needs to be a hierarchy.
Yeah, there needs to be, because I feel like that's why there's so much obsession with pinning our hopes on these celebrities, or, you know, even in the spiritual, like, you know, people who have done really well on YouTube are now, people kind of go to them as leaders, because a leader is needed. Like everyone needs that. And because it's kind of up for grabs, because the system isn't really working at all, I think it's created a lot of confusion in creating a lot of people who are following, and there also being a lot of people to follow. So there's constant, you know, different narratives going on that conflict with each other. Yeah.
That's the thing. I think like more than ever, these last few years have shown us that there's some people that don't need it. Like, I don't feel like I necessarily need it. But there's people that do need to not only be told what to do, but actively see the structure of things. Like they need to see who's running it. All right, cool. Who's challenging them? All right, cool. Who's after that? Like they need to see a line and a chain of events, because when you're looking up and you can only see one person, you've got so much to go against, because there's one person. But if you go in, like, if there's a structure where there's this person, then there's that person and that person, you might think a bit more before you go against what they're saying, because you feel like it's coming from a place of discussion, like there's some sort of hierarchy. But if there's no hierarchy in place, again, going back to our prime minister, your prime minister, no, I'm joking. Like, you saw, for instance, like COVID, COVID rules was put out. Can I say COVID without being flagged these days? I don't know. COVID, the COVID rules was put out. Cool. A large majority of percentage people listened, There was another smaller percentage. It felt like a larger percentage because of the communities that I was in. But a smaller percentage didn't listen, But my point is, that information was put out, right? The people around him appeared to be backing this information. The switch happened to the majority when one of the people closest to him, clearly wasn't following these rules. So immediately that's disrupted the hierarchy, right? Because the person close to you is not doing what you're saying. Cool, that person's gone.
Just a point as well, like that example is a perfect example of why leadership doesn't work when you are withholding information.
100%.
Because it just creates mistrust. So everyone's like, I'm not going to do that. Let me do it my own way.
100%. So like, that's when I say the need for hierarchy in that situation is no point. You just deliver the information and then let people do with it what they want.
I wonder how it would have been if we had a leader who during that time told us, you know, like, this is hard. I don't know what to do. We have never dealt with a global pandemic before, you know. I wonder how that would have been, like, if it would have created more passion or more compassion or more panic, you know. Because at the same time, I feel like I'm really not a fan of, you know, like, I really try not to talk about politics, basically, because I just don't agree with most of what's happening. But I feel like COVID is one of those situations where I actually do have a lot of leeway, because I'm like, imagine just coming into that and then your first job is to navigate a global pandemic. I don't know if anyone could have really done a better or a worse job. And you can compare the state of other countries to each other, but you know, that countries who dealt with it better were dealing with everything better beforehand, you know, and their circumstances were a little bit different, so they kind of could. I think dealing with that in our country was really difficult, and I think all things considered, yeah, he could have done things better or not, but I think it wasn't really the worst job. I feel controversial, I know,
very controversial.
Woo, but I don't think so, because everyone has ideas. But you know, like, say if someone did say something really whatever and compassionate and this, that and the other, you know what, scratch that. Because the thing that I'm basically thinking of is, it is so hard to deal with something so uncertain and unpredictable and completely out of left field without panicking the public.
Very true.
Like, if his overarching goal was, we're all freaking out, but we just need to make sure that no one goes crazy. Because even when it first happened, all the shelves in the stores were empty. Like, imagine if there was true panic and everyone was like, forget it. It would go crazy.
But even that just highlights the lack of a good leader. Because a good leader would have been able to ease everybody's panics with that. It would have been reassuring and being like, what you're doing is not needed right now. Like, things, I might not have everything under control, but I've got that element. Like, you don't need
We've got toilet paper. Don't worry, like, we're good.
But I think those things happen because there was a lack of leadership, like a lack of a good leader. Whereas in a good hierarchy, there would be a good leader that would be able to calm the nerves of people,
who knows their people.
Literally,
I think that's what is a good leader. Like, what makes someone capable to be at the top of the hierarchy. Like, do you know who you're dealing with?
And control. The control is not the key element for a good hierarchy. Is my underlining point, I would say, on that matter. So overall, hierarchies, how do you feel? Needed or not needed?
You know what? It's so interesting. I came into this conversation more on the not needed side, and I'm leaving the conversation thinking that they're definitely kind of needed, I feel, because they exist anyway.
They exist. Wherever you look in life, they exist. But it's about if it's being implemented correctly or not. And I honestly feel there's certain elements of a hierarchy. Yeah, what would you say are the pros of a hierarchy? Because I would say there's certain elements of a hierarchy that helps with a good society, and there's others that hinders the society.
Okay, so I think good elements of a hierarchy is, one, you know who to ask for help. And that's really important, to feel like you're supported. I think another good thing about a hierarchy is you know where you're going. And you can decide if you want to go somewhere else, and that's okay too. I think, those are good things. I think, a sense of support, a sense of community, a sense of like trust, like knowing what like having, not being given too much that you're not actually ready or capable for, and vice versa. I think it's really hard being in households with broken down hierarchies, because who's meant to step up, you know?
Yeah, 100%. What would you say the negative sides are?
Wait, let's hear your positive sides of a hierarchy first. Yeah.
Like you said, knowing where you can turn to, not having someone you can, not even necessarily, yes, a sense of community, respect within the community.
Accountability.
100%. And like almost like I don't think this is the right word. It's not a soundboard, but somebody that you can like, you know what I mean by that, right? Someone that you can just sound off to, and they'll be able to listen,
Yeah.
give you advice if necessary, or just guidance.
That's the key word, I think. I think hierarchies are a great guide.
And having a focal point is always good for anything.
Yeah.
Focal points are great in life.
Mm.
So that would be my main ones.
All right, negatives.
Holding people back from their true potential. Control.
Yeah.
Bad leaders.
Yeah, bad leaders. I think the expectation that people should follow blindly is dangerous.
100%. People not moving with times. Hierarchies can you get stuck in your ways. Not valuing the opinion of others, especially the people coming up.
And you know what? I think on the flip side as well, with having a hierarchy in the sense of the community, I think if a hierarchy is so like strict and rigid, it could have the opposite effect of making people feel excluded. Like, you know,
100%.
for example, like if you're in a family of intellectuals and you're the only creative person, you might have something that's so beautiful, but you're seeing it as or made to feel that it's not a good thing.
Definitely. I feel like I don't, like when they say, oh, the younger generation is their world now, yeah? I hear it, but I don't at the same time, right? Because they're not the only ones living in the world. But the older people...
Boy, I wonder how they feel.
They like... The decisions... Another example, I know we're rounding up, but another example is like the Brexit thing, yeah? The older people made this decision, basically. A lot of them made the decision. And that kind of comes down to a hierarchy system, if you really look at it on a grand scale of things, because the majority of them vote, first of all. The younger generation, for whatever reason, they don't buy into the voting as much, yeah? I don't know where I stand on that myself at this minute, because I haven't voted for a while. But
yeah, I was just gonna say, I was like, it was nice to be called young. I'm joking.
Like, there's also a cap on when you can start voting from, right? So that's already excluding
a lot of people
that might have a valuable opinion, but just because they're not of a certain threshold in this hierarchy, their opinion doesn't count. But at the same time, we turn around and say it's their world, but when they're not making the decisions for their own world.
It's such a weird thing, isn't it? Like, it's such a conflicting thing, because I agree totally. Like, it's not their world. You know, I'm still struggling in it too. Still trying to find my way, and then you want me to help you. You know, it's certainly not your world. But at the same time, I feel like where we were like, you know, when you're younger, you're experiencing things in a certain way, and now we have this nostalgic thing to look back on. Younger people are creating their nostalgic thing now, and so the way that I see it is they're experiencing the world and its issues firsthand, because it's more real to them,
in real time,
because we have other things that have shaped us, and they'll also be in that position too. And I think it's really important to listen to what young people have to say, because they are in the change and implementing a change.
100%.
And whenever I speak to young people, I always have I never leave feeling like I know less, you know? And that says a lot about how much more we need to start trusting them. When you trust someone, you're then giving someone a choice to step up. And I think no one's really able to step up because there's such a lack of trust.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it's like, it's a weird one, because like you're saying, we're all living through the same times, right? But we have been through something at a more developed stage than they have, right?
Yeah.
But they've also been through something so for instance, yeah, like I can look back and say 9/11 when that happened, yeah, I was in school, cool. 9/11, cool. At that age, I might have had an opinion on it, But a good hierarchy would make sure that that's not my problem, right? Because I'm still young. I need to, no matter what my opinion is on it, I can voice my opinion, but it shouldn't be my problem because it's not me that's impacting the most at that moment, right?
Yeah.
What we've just gone through for the last 3 years, it has impacted our generation, as in our age group, let me say, not just our generation, because our age group, but we're not the ones that was 18 when this happened and now it's finished, you're 21.
God, that's so true.
Like, they've gone through something.
Damn, that's so true.
Where their opinion on where we move after that should be as valuable as me, like, or the people older than me, let's say.
Yeah.
Where I don't think it's being looked at in that same way now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
anyway.
so true. Do you think that's really true? You know, like, imagine, because, 25 to 21, 6, 7, 8, it's not that different, 18 to 21 is very different. And I think it's really important to hear what that experience has been like what's come up for that, And I think a good hierarchy would nurture that.
Literally, yeah.
and focus on that more, just like how when something big happens in the household, you tend to focus more on the youngest child because that it's, they're younger, like it's harder.
But that's why I think like a lot of them are taking it into their hands to disrupt the hierarchy that we know of today.
Which is what happens, like, when you don't feel supported, you do get more rebellious.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't need hierarchies at all.
Joke,
psych, we do.
But yeah. All right, well, cool. It's that time of the show. I don't know if you've
wise words.
If you've got something for the people.
Damn, wise words with a hierarchy.
It's a tough one, to be honest.
Even the convo itself, it's a real thinker. Like, I still don't really know how I feel about it. So I guess if I was going to say some wise words, I would say, don't attach yourself to something, like if you're in a hierarchy, don't attach to being the leader because you might not be the best at it and it might serve you better to just not, like, be relaxed. And at the same time, don't hold yourself back thinking, I'm the youngest, I don't know enough, Everyone has something and you might be holding yourself back from doing something really important. And same thing across all things like work, whatever. It's a lot of wise words, but that's what I would say.
Makes sense. I would say respect would be my word. But I would say respect the people that come before you, but don't disrespect yourself by holding yourself back and not pushing forward just because you want to respect the hierarchy. So say.
I love that. Don't disrespect yourself,
because you might have a lot of value, but you're just looking at.
And you might be belonging to the wrong group. Like, there might be a hierarchy that suits you better,
100%.
if you're authentic to who you are in this world.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah.
All right. Well,
that's another one in the bag.
That brings us to the end. Can you tell we're tired today? Can you?
I don't know what this we thing is, but yes. Until next time.